All right, Futsal community, welcome to Caro Futsal podcast number 12. Every podcast will bring a unique guest, and today is no different. We always bring someone that brings a unique view of futsal and someone that has a big impact in futsal, from players to coaches and people running federations, anyone that has a big impact. And today is no different. Today I have a very special guest, Steve Harris. Steve, thank you so much for accepting the invitation.
Thank you for inviting me, Andre.
For those that don't know, Steve, massive. Some would say that he's the biggest futsal follower around the world. Someone that has a passion to grow futsal. I would say, is that would you call yourself that a big follower? What would you call yourself, Steve?
I think my motives are more selfish. I really love the game. So rather than, consciously growing the sport, I'm more of a follower. And I
More
like to
follower.
share information. I like to get information. I like to make friends and contacts in the futsal community. And it's been that way for, 35 years.
Well, for many people around the world, you as the creator of the futsal group, Futsal in Japan on Facebook group. But there's much more to that story. Steve, before Futsal in Japan, and I can see that you're American guy, American accent. Where were you? Were you born in the States or were you born in Japan?
Yeah, I was born in San Francisco, California, 63 years ago. So I spent the first 21 years of my life there, and I ended up studying Japanese at university there and came to Japan as a result of that. So my skill set is as a Japanese language specialist. So after I graduated from university in the United States, the only place I could work was really Japan. I really wanted to live in Japan at that time anyway. So I moved to Japan in 1980 and have
In your
stayed in
twenties,
Japan ever
would you
since
say?
1980.
Mid twenties,
20 age, I was 21.
21,
Yeah.
and you've been in Japan since then.
Yeah. 42 years. Yeah.
And do you always have the idea of staying in Japan, or was just a temporary thing and you wanted to go back to the States?
Yeah, I really didn't know. I thought that maybe I would go back to the States at some point, but after arriving in Japan, I started getting translation work almost immediately. And it was
Mm-hmm.
very, very lucrative at the time. You could make a lot of money doing it. So
Mm-hmm.
I became very busy with that. I ended up marrying my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and we had three kids. And the process of parenting and working and everything it was such a whirlwind that I just
Yeah.
stayed where I was, and I have continued to stay in Japan since that time.
Japan is an easy place to fall in love with, isn't it?
I think so. I've known many non-Japanese over the years who've come here and who have left disillusioned, but my experience here has been very charmed, and I consider myself very lucky. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we make our own luck, but yeah, it's been a fantastic place to live. I wouldn't live anywhere else.
And Steve, just before we get to your futsal journey, who is Steve out of the social media? What do you do?
I'm a translator. I translate Japanese to English.
So you still do
I've
that?
been doing that for most of the time I've been here. For about 17 years, I was a Japanese language teacher. There's a school called the American School in Japan, and I taught there for 17 years. All three of my sons went to that school, so they're bilingual, Japanese and English.
Uh-huh.
But other than Japanese language teacher, I've been a professional translator for most of my time in Japan.
Ah, very nice, very nice. I had the lucky to go to Japan in 2013 for the Kobe Futsal Festival. I don't know if you recall that tournament. Do you remember that tournament, Kobe?
Of course, yeah. Which team did you play for?
Fremantle Muita Calma. We lost to Catalunya in the grand
Right.
final, to the selection of Catalunya.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow, I did not know
Were you
that.
were you in the stadium by any chance?
No, that those are during my. I had to be away from futsal for about 7 years,
We'll
from
get to that point. We'll get to
2000
that point.
about 2007 2013, because my sons were in college in the United States, and
Uh-huh.
I was teaching during the day and translating at night. I had two
So if it was
jobs.
not for that break, we would have matched at that time, wouldn't we?
Oh
Just
yeah,
like
well, it's in Kobe, so it's not very close to here. But I did go
where
to
you located in Japan?
in Tokyo.
Ah, Tokyo. Okay.
Right, but yeah, I went to the Kobe Festa 4 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, when Catalonia selection was there again, and
Was 4 years the last time that they had the Kobe Festival?
whew, I think they had it 1 year after that, and I don't think they've had it since. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, that was a really interesting year because a Japanese F League team won the title, and
Mm.
like a team from Latvia, Riga,
Yeah.
Cars, that was coached by the legendary coach Orlando Duarte, who was the predecessor to George Braz, Portugal. He was coaching the
Hmm.
team, so that was a very memorable tournament. I think that was
That's cool.
2017. Yeah.
These tournaments in Japan, they were very famous. Do you think that they're gonna start doing some of these tournaments again? Have you heard of anything?
Kobe Festa is really interesting because the prefecture that Kobe, the state, is called Hyogo, and Hyogo, the head of the Hyogo Futsal Federation, is given this big budget, and he can spend the big budget as he likes. And he has
Hmm.
has certain friends, like for example, Fremantle, for example, Barcelona,
Yeah.
Catalonia, tends to invite the same teams. It's
He
one
invites
guy.
his friends. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's one guy, and he's a nice guy named Nakagiri-san, and
Hmm.
he's in charge of it. It's basically a one-man show. And so when Nakagiri-san gets his budget again from the city of Kobe, I'm sure that Kobe Festa will be restarted.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I hope I get the opportunity to go to Japan again. And I also I became friends with some Japanese, like Thiago Kazaki from Kobe.
Right.
I brought him to Australia. He stayed in my house for a week.
Really
Yeah, so I brought him to
great
play a
player.
tournament in Australia. I
Great
had a
player.
few other players. Japanese people, they are all they're very focused the way they play. They're very, uh, yeah, consider. But anyway, let's get back to you. How did you get involved with futsal in Japan? And when was that?
About 1986, I was about 27 years old, and I had no connection to either football or futsal. But
Hmm.
a friend of mine invited me to an exhibition match. This was Santos, Uruguay national team, playing at the national stadium football, and it was my first football match ever in my life, my entire life. And I watched it. And I thought, man, this is like good. This is really good. So I started to play myself, and I got a ball, practiced, kicked against the wall, started playing, and then I heard rumors from somebody that there was a kind of football you play indoors, and I thought, indoor football? That's crazy. So I called the JFA, the Football Association, and I said, what is this indoor football I've been hearing about? And they said, oh, we'll give you the phone number of a guy, and the guy's name is Takao Sakai. He was like
Hmm.
the number one guy for Salon de Futebol at the time. Um,
Indoor soccer,
we, we,
yeah.
we just call it Salon here in Japan. We
Uh-huh.
call it Salon. That's
Sorry, Japanese people use a lot of Portuguese words, don't they? When it
for
comes to
futsal.
futsal.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
futsal. Yes, yeah. All the positions are Portuguese. But anyway,
Uh-huh.
the JFA just told me I was a random guy calling them. They said call this guy, and I got to know him, and he was deeply involved in the game at the time, organizing, coaching, et cetera, et cetera. It was the small, heavy ball, bola pesada, the size three,
The heavy
and
ball.
yeah, we I started to play with his group, and I really got into it. I thought this is great, this is fantastic, and so he told me, look, we need more people to be organizers, administrators. Will you join the federation? And at the time, it was called the Mini Soccer Federation, and we played by
Hmm.
FIFUSA rules, the old rules. You
Yeah.
know,
Like
go
everyone
in.
else at that time, really, in the 80s.
Um, that was the from well, it's hard to say because not that many countries had indoor football. So
Hmm.
in I don't know 20 countries there were like FIFUSA rules, and obviously Brazil, obviously Uruguay, Spain. Uh,
Yeah.
these countries all played the FIFUSA game, and that was my introduction to futsal. the FIFUZA game. So that's how I got involved with the Mini Soccer Federation. The Mini Soccer Federation later became recognized by the JFA. When FIFA started to adopt the sport that was they called futsal. FIFA didn't call it futsal at first. They called it like football 5. When they first started experimenting in, I don't know, the late 80s.
Yeah.
But anyway, my involvement goes back to the FIFUZA days, 1986.
And then when you got involved, what were some of the things that you were doing at that time? Some of your roles?
Everything. I mean, we would, when we do tournaments, we would have to lay the tape. We would have to teach the referees. We would have to, organize
All
the
around.
teams. We had to do everything because the rules still were unknown. People wanted to play the game. The interest was very strong in Japan, even at that time. So people wanted to get into it, and we were teaching them, and there were no resources at the time. There was no internet. The game was not on TV. There was no way to no materials so that we could share with people. We only had our own knowledge, our own experience. So this gentleman, Takao Sakai, he would invite teams from Australia, for example. The FIFUZA game was very big in Australia back then. He would invite teams from Brazil, and so we would learn from Brazil and Australia. If you can believe that.
Was at that time let's still call it futsal, because even though it was FIFUZA, futsal had a big jump in popularity in Japan?
It had a kind of a grassroots appeal. It had a grassroots appeal because, there hasn't always been a lot of extra land here. A lot of the population here lives in cities. So there aren't in Australia, I mean, everywhere you go, there's a football pitch, or a rugby pitch, and a cricket, what do they call it? The cricket facility. There's it's like a trio everywhere you go. But here in Japan, it's much more limited. So the appeal of a game played in a gymnasium was very, very strong. Although one problem we had was that the managers of gymnasiums did not like the idea of people kicking a ball inside them. So we had to do some persuading, to the city governments and whatnot.
What sports do they used to use in the stadiums instead of futsal?
Well, I mean, basketball, of course, volleyball. Yeah, those sports are huge here, and they always have been. So we had to compete with those, or even wrestling, or, I mean, there's so many different arena sports here, martial arts, et cetera, et cetera.
And then so obviously FIFA took over futsal. It changed to, was that at that time they created the JFF, Japanese Futsal Federation? Did you continue to be involved with futsal during that transition?
Yeah, there was a kind of a political battle going on at the time, but between FIFA and FIFUZA, and many countries were sort of staying off on the sidelines. They didn't want to get involved because the football people really, they didn't care. They didn't care about futsal. So those of us who were involved with FIFUZA, we wanted to be recognized. We wanted to become part of the FIFA futsal, the football family. We wanted to be in that family, and we lobbied to become part of that. And eventually, the JFA said, "Okay, we're ready to play futsal. Japan Futsal Federation, can you help us?" So the Japan Futsal Federation was absorbed into the JFA. So I was a director of the Japan Futsal Federation, and then for the JFA's first futsal committee, I was a committee member, one of the first, and I stayed on that committee. I don't know, about 15 years. I wasn't able to go to the meetings when I became very busy with my making money for my son's tuition, and so I no longer am affiliated with the JFA. But for many years, I was a committee member for the JFA futsal committee. I wrote, for example, the history of futsal, and they use that in their coaching courses.
Nice.
A piece I wrote. I don't know if they're still using it. Maybe they are. Maybe they aren't. But
I'm not going to get into the politics of FIFUZA and FIFA, but the one thing I want to ask is the rules. Did you used to enjoy more the old rules or the new rules? A lot of people I talk, let's say, I had a contact with Venancio Lopez from Spain, and he was a big fan of actually the old rules with the throw-ins and a few other things. The ball had to bounce before the halfway. What about you? Did you like more the old rules or the new rules when they changed?
Well, my personal opinion doesn't really count, but I can. Well, first of all, I'll give you my personal opinion. I prefer the new rules, and
Mm-hmm.
from that's subjective. From an objective point of view, I would say the new rules are better because they are easier for football people to understand and appreciate. When you play with the
Uh-huh.
old rules with that small ball, with no shooting in the penalty area,
Yeah.
with the throw-ins and stuff, it's like a chess game. When you were growing up, did you play the old style
No, I
football?
did. I didn't get a chance, so I just missed out playing the old rules.
Right.
Uh-huh.
It was
Yeah.
like a chess game. It was a very slow game, and there was a lot of movement between the fixo and the goalkeeper, because you could do back passes, and they would
Yeah,
pass it
like
back
beach
to the
soccer,
goalkeeper.
just passing
He'd
the ball
throw it
back to
out.
the
Yeah,
goalkeeper.
yeah, it was like a chess game, and then the attack was like lightning fast.
Uh-huh.
So
What about the size of the court? Do you think that that was a good move
small.
to make him bigger?
Yeah, it was small. It was all those old futsal pitches in Brazil. You know how small they are. They're like basketball size.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it was very small. So also the large pitch size of FIFA futsal makes it more friendly, I think, towards more players. I think the old rules were very hard for non futsal people to appreciate and understand. It's a much more enjoyable game, I think, under the FIFA
Hmm.
rules.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, but how did you get involved with actually your futsal journalism? Because for a long time you said that you work inside of the as a committee member, organizing lots of things. But when did you start to actually grow futsal, as in publishing articles and as you said, writing about the history of futsal? How did that happen?
Because nobody else was doing it. In English, nobody was doing it, literally. So it just, in the same way that I was laying down tape, in the same way that I was teaching referees, I was doing it because nobody else was doing it. So at the time, for example, Spain had a very well developed futsal culture. So they had a futsal magazine, a very nice magazine called Doble Penalty. Doble
Uh-huh.
Penalty was the name of that, and the
Like
media still
double
exists.
penalty in English, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So 10 meter penalty. So because the double penalty is like the symbol of our sport. It,
Yeah,
it's something that separates futsal from football. So
yeah.
that was the name of the Spanish magazine. So there was journalism, very advanced journalism in Spanish, and I think in Brazil you don't really have like that same kind of
Yeah,
culture
we
of
don't actually.
reading and writing.
We don't have an
People
yeah.
play it and they talk about it and they
Even in
watch it.
Spain, they have the Pista Azul, which is like the blue court, and that's a famous show that's been going for so many years.
Yep, yep, yep. But anyway, there was nobody writing about futsal in English. Okay, so I just volunteered. I would write about it, and well, first of all, I made a website before Futsal Planet. Okay, so I had a website where I would write my own stuff, and people would see it. And this was like 1995, 1996, and I kind of got going. I had very primitive web design skills, but I could do enough so I actually had the thing. And if you go in the internet, you know what the internet time machine is? You can go back and you can look at stuff from
I
the
have
from
heard it, but I never used it.
yeah. Well, you can actually find it's still there. It exists
Oh,
in the
really?
time machine
I'll have a
because it's
look
all been
after.
copied and archived. But I'll try to find it and send
Yeah,
you
yeah, that'll be
some
great.
screen captures of it. But anyway, Futsal Planet was really the game changer, and I think it started in 1996. And it was started by Miko Martic, who's
But before we
currently
get, so what was your website about? What'd you do on your
it was
website?
it was like there was a section about music, there was a section about futsal, and there was a section about just random essays I wrote because I like to write.
So a bit of
So I would
everything that you loved doing.
That's right. So the futsal section, the homepage, the opening page, it had the word futsal in all these different languages, like um, um, you know, Zala football is the indoor football in Dutch, for example. It had all these different names for futsal as the design of the cover, and so I just had random articles that I wrote or I collected or other people wrote to me, and so it was, as far as I know, the first internet site that specialized in futsal. And Miko Martic and Luca Ranocchiari, who started Futsal Planet, well, first of all, I knew Miko because in 1994, when FIFA had the first tournament introducing the new futsal rules, I was still a member of the GFA, and I accompanied the Japanese national team to Italy, to Milan. And Croatia was also there. That's where I met Miko Martic for the first time. There was a six-team tournament, and we basically FIFA unveiled the new rules for futsal, the rules that are the current rules now. The first version of futsal was very primitive, very poor.
Yeah.
So the new version was 1994. I was there with Japan, Milan, Italy, and I met Miko. And then he emails me 2 years later, and he says, "Steve, have a look at this." And it's the prototype for Futsal Planet. I say, "Miko, this is like amazing. It's like, you've got all this information. This is crazy." So I said, "Okay, I give up. This is it.
It's
This
time
is
for you guys to take over.
Yeah, this is it. Okay, the ball is in your court. Go with it, man." And he's had it up since 1996.
Did you
But
have any input with Futsal Planet, or at that time you just sent bullet to them and was up to them to, run their websites?
they got it going. Miko and Luca. And what I do now and then is I'll write stuff, and since there's nowhere else to publish it, I'll say, "Hey guys, do you want to publish it?" And they say, "Yeah, sure," because they're looking for content. So that was probably the first major for futsal, major medium that my stuff was published at, because there was no place to publish it. I was published.
It has changed a little bit now. So now we have other medias like Futsal Feed, Futsal Focus. There's a few other websites. Do you write for all these websites, or you just write for Futsal?
Well,
in Japan?
I mean, I've some. I mean, some of these places, they're just basically, I don't know, they kind of aggregate information and stuff. They're not necessarily content creators. But anyway, in Japan we had, two major futsal magazines. I wrote for both of those. So quite a bit of my stuff was published in Japan, in Japanese. But over the years also, I started a listserv. Do you know what a listserv is? It's like a mailing list.
No.
Yeah, well, it was very popular in the 90s. So I had a listserv for futsal, and that's where I met a lot of the people I still know now, because it was the only.
This mailing, do you have some people in Japan that you just send them information through the mail? Is that what it was?
A listserv is like it's email that's basically CC'd to all members of the group.
Email, yeah.
And there was actually a thing called Yahoo Groups, and you would sign up for Yahoo Groups, and you would start your listserv, and then other people would sign up for it, and then whenever somebody posted something to the list, it would go out to all the members of the list.
Yeah.
So I can't remember what the name was, but it was about mid-90s that I started, and it was pretty popular, and it was really the only place in English where you could exchange information about futsal. So
it's interesting. Sorry to cut you. You saw that there was nothing in English, and you just filled the market, right? You filled the gap that was there.
Yeah. There really was nothing. Yeah.
It's very interesting because, Steve, that's exactly the same reason why I started my YouTube channel. There was no one posting coaching content in English. And I thought, where is people in Australia going to find content in English? And that's why it started as well. But Steve, when did you start Futsal in Japan on Facebook, the one that it's so famous now, and you have such a good community?
I think that was about 2016. That was when I was kind of coming in from the wilderness because all three of my sons were finally finishing with college. I had two jobs and I was able to quit my teaching job. So I had extra time. So I think it was about 2015. So since I had extra time, I could go back to watching futsal at arenas. I could start writing about futsal. I could contact my friends again. And so, I was already on Facebook. So I thought, okay, let's start a group about futsal in Japan. And so I started it up, but my interests in futsal are so broad that I just started posting about all this other stuff, outside of Japan. So it's basically it's called Futsal Japan, but I post about futsal everywhere. It's basically become a medium for me to kind of tell the story of our sport, both the history and what's happening in real time. To kind of to update people about what's happening, but also keep one eye on the past. So I try to be the storyteller.
Yeah.
So it's not really about me. It's about futsal always comes first. So I'm just trying to tell the stories, like trying to tell stories about the sports from the perspective that I know, my own historical perspective.
Well, you have been very successful because the community, the response you get from your posts, you have some really loyal followers there. You have people that are always interacting, and followers, I mean, people that are interacting, they're the real followers, and you have managed to create a very good community. Uh, but why did you decide to stick to futsal in Japan, the name, and not something like a futsal around the world, or is it even Steve Harris? I'm not sure. Just some different ideas.
The original idea was just to have a group about Japanese futsal. That was the original idea. And I didn't really have any aspirations about, it becoming that popular or anything. I just wanted to have an outlet to tell people about what's happening in Japan. And the more I did it, the more I realized that, there were other stories that I had to tell. There were and a lot also, Andre, one thing you have to bear in mind is a lot of the stuff I post is not stuff I find. It's stuff that people tell me about. They send me
Not really.
messages. They send me email. When I post stuff, I get corrected all the time because I get stuff wrong. My own,
Yes.
I get my information wrong. So somebody will send me a private message saying, "Oh no, it's this." And so, and it's people that you would never expect to be looking at, like famous coaches.
Yeah.
Not that many players, but people that are pretty well known will contact me out of the blue and just say, "Oh, I like this," or "Oh, this is wrong," or "Oh, what can you post this?" Or I get contacted quite a bit, and that's very flattering because it shows that there are some people who appreciate it and are paying
For
attention.
sure, yeah.
So
And that's how I came across Futsal in Japan for the first time. You posted something, and I thought you were actually wrong. And then I say, no, I feel he's wrong. I have to make a comment. And then I think I marked Marco Sorato, Pipoca, and then he left a comment. He said, look, my opinion is that you're wrong. And then you accept that. So you actually change your opinion, but then you explained. And do you try to always, before you post something, make sure it's as accurate as possible? Do you go to
no,
the sport? Or do you
no,
just
no.
reshare with?
Sometimes I just shoot. I just pull the trigger, because first of all, get it out there, and then if somebody needs to correct it, they'll correct it. And it's obviously embarrassing for me, but at the same time, if somebody takes the time to correct it for me, they did the work, so I appreciate it. So I don't know. I don't mind people correcting me. I don't mind people disagreeing with me. But I think it is important though that we share, and we share often, and we share, openly.
It, and well, you're very big on Facebook, but what about the other social medias? Have you thought of trying to just duplicating everything onto the other social media platforms, or what?
Well, I basically mirror most of the stuff on Twitter. So Twitter and Facebook. I have an Instagram account, but I'm more of a lurk. I lurk on Instagram because I don't know. It's already, I think, two social media platforms are enough for me. I'm not trying to make myself into a brand. I'm just basically trying to share information as an individual.
Yeah.
So I'm not really trying to build up a business or a brand or anything. So I'm keeping my scope and scale limited because I really don't want to get involved in all these different
Yeah.
platforms.
I do
Just
think that you're very humble. I think you do. Maybe you even don't realize how much of an impact you've done on the futsal community. Do you realize that um, we have articles from even the World Cup, and sometimes some I have seen a few times on even on Instagram saying they have spoken on the futsal in Japan group, and from that they made an article into something else. Have you realized how big futsal in Japan is go?
yeah, I know it surprises me, but one thing I have to say, and I'm this I think it's important to mention that what I post is not 100% from me. As I said, it's from my contacts. So
Uh-huh.
I was thinking, and I started to make a list of all the people who provide me with information. And I have a list in my hand here. I'm not going to read the whole thing for you, but basically,
Yeah.
it's a sheet of paper, and it's covered with the names of countries and the names of people. And these are all people who regularly provide me with information, answer my questions, people who I follow, people who, I would, I wouldn't be able to do what I do without them. So
Yeah.
it's not me, it's not Steve Harris, it's the futsal community. I'm just basically a representative. I represent. I'm one of hundreds and hundreds of people who are doing this. So I'm just one of many.
But it's still, it's I know you're saying that it is a community that you created. It's please take credit. I think you deserve this credit as well. But there was a moment that you come across as someone that it's very impartial. Sorry for my English. So, for example, there was a time about maybe 2 or 3 years ago that I was making ebooks in English, coaching ebooks. I asked you to if I could post on that to sell, and you say no. But at that time, that was the moment that I thought, look, he's really someone that I can trust, because if he's saying no to me, he's saying no to everyone else. Uh, and and that makes that group something that it's very unique. That to get into that, um, it needs to be something that it's futsal related. It's just not anything that's going to get through to the group. So credit to you, Steve. Don't be too humble. You deserve a credit.
Well, I believe you. I thought I think your work is great, but I'm constantly getting uh, uh, there's a steady stream of people
I
that are
imagine, yeah.
providing coaching content and whatnot, and I'm just what I try to do is limit the stuff I post to news, because I think the coaching content is more appropriate for other
Correct, and that's exactly what I'm
groups.
saying. That and that's where you show me that you are someone that values exactly what you're doing. You did it perfect of saying no to me at that time. And to be honest, I don't think I even should have asked you to put it there, because I should have realized that there was not a coaching platform in that platform. Uh, but have you thought of an idea to? Of course, there's many websites now that do futsal content, but getting this community that you have on futsal in Japan and creating a Steve Harris futsal website again now that you have the following, you have uh, the community.
No, I think I've pretty much reached my peak. This is what I do. I share information. I get information. I make friends. I watch games, and
Yeah.
that's who I am. And I'll never be anything more than that. And also, as you can tell, I'm not a very young man anymore. So I don't have any great aspirations of becoming some sort of a you know, I have no aspirations of becoming anything more than what I am now, which is not very much. Yeah. So,
It is very much. It is very much. Steve, all right, now let's talk about futsal in Japan now, Japanese futsal. Uh, Over the last 30 years, can you just quickly, I know it's a long journey, but tell us your opinion on futsal in Japan currently, the past 10 years. I also had another friend that I forgot to mention, Ricardo Higa. Ricardo Higa is from my hometown. We grew up playing for the same club. During the holidays, he used to go to Brazil for holidays. He used to come and spend the preseason with us. And at that time, he was already a player, and then he became a coach as well. So anyway, can you just tell us where futsal in Japan is at the moment?
Yeah, actually, well, I also I have to tell you about Ricardo now. He's the head coach of Tachikawa Futsal Athletic, which is my local team.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's the little, right, the team. Actually, I thought I had the shirt up. Um, anyway, he's the head coach right now, and he has quite a bit of experience in futsal here. I think that the trajectory of Japanese futsal is very similar to um, most of the other countries that are like, in the top 40 or 50 in the ranking. There was the time of the most primitive days of the 80s and 90s when people were just learning how to play, and then serious competitions emerged from that scene, and then a national league, and in the case of Japan, that was 2007. So the mid 2000s, I think, was a turning point for many countries where they developed national leagues, and any country with a national league, tends to have a very strong national team, and that's why we have so many teams that are capable of going to the World Cup right now. So the trajectory of Japanese futsal is basically the same as most other countries. Even say Argentina. We're not that different from Argentina. We're not that different from
No, yeah, true.
Portugal, for example. In terms of timing, we're actually pretty similar in terms of when we got started and how we developed. So
Hmm.
yeah, I wish I could tell you more than that, but if you look at the way Japan plays, you can tell we play a pretty sophisticated type of futsal, and these are players with experience. Although one interesting thing is a lot of our top players have come from football. They transitioned in their late teens or even in their early 20s. And I don't know, maybe Japan is a little bit unique because we still have many players from football who make the
Even
transition.
from the newer generations now, the new
Yeah.
players coming through, they still coming back from football.
Yeah, actually, Shimizu, of Cordoba, he's one of the few players who started from about 12. So, that's for a Japanese futsal player, that's very young. Usually,
Really?
our players, they play outdoor football. But the thing is, even our national, like our under 12s right now, or I think they play eight-a-side. So the Japanese players are used to playing in small spaces. Japanese style has always involved close control of the ball, lots of passing,
Yeah.
unselfish play. It's always been the style here.
That's what I
So
was going to ask you, because you look at the players, it looks like they actually have been playing futsal since young. They look like
that's
their
right.
technique, they have a
Yeah,
futsal technique.
yeah,
But that's a surprise here and there for me. What about junior futsal in Japan? Junior leagues, do the kids play futsal at all there?
yeah. They do, but it's difficult to continue it because there's no. We do have the F League, obviously, but it doesn't pay anything. So
Hmm.
if you want to continue as a serious futsal player after high school or after university, you better have rich parents. You better have a wife who has a very good job. You better be in a very good situation because it's very, very difficult. There's almost
That's
no money.
interesting.
There's
Uh-huh.
almost no money. I mean, we pay players from foreign countries to come. Obviously, you have to pay them something. But I think the majority of our domestic players are amateurs. They just play for the love of the game.
That's very interesting. Um, I remember when I moved to Australia in 2010. There was a time that we used to hear that the F League was growing so much. I think Ricardinho went that. What year Ricardinho went to Japan?
I think it was 2010 or 2011 to 2013.
Yeah, it was
And
similar
yes,
to that time, and I remember saying, the F League is gonna grow so much. Do you feel that the last few years that it just has stayed the same level? Has it been continued to grow, or
it's gone in a downward direction for consistently for the last you know 14 years. I mean, when it started out, we had thousands in attendance. And every year, progressively, fewer and fewer spectators. And now because of the pandemic, maybe we get 500 or 600 people at a game. But even before the pandemic, we were having difficulty attracting 1,000 spectators to a game. It's just, I don't know. I think that the teams, the league, could be doing a better job of promotion. I think that they're so busy with the day-to-day management of their team or with the league that they don't really think a lot about promotion.
About
So
the social media side.
they're working on it. They're working on it. I'm not sure that social media is enough. I really think that you have to get out more in the community. I posted a couple of things recently about how you can promote futsal by getting out into the community. And there was that amazing story we just had from France. How the team attracted over 3,000 spectators this past weekend, and I'm trying to do a little investigating into that, but it's proving to be difficult. I contacted the president of the club, but he just said it's
Was
all
that
about effort.
the SCSS club in France?
It's the what was the name of it? It's Etoile Etoile de Laval.
Hmm.
Yeah, remember the first name was Etoile, so Star, and I think that the city is called Laval. But it was a second division team that had like their heart broken 4 times. They couldn't get promoted, and they finally got promoted when ACCS Ricardinho's team was relegated. Remember, they were
Yeah.
penalized, and so that team at 12, that's how they got into the first division. And I think they're ninth place right now, but they have a very loyal following, and they seem to have some programs that link them very well to the community, so that they have buy-in and support from the community. I don't know what they're doing, but I have to find out, or I
Well,
have to get somebody to
hopefully,
tell me.
I have Felipe from Magnus, the president of Magnus, coming up on the podcast very soon. But it does feel that it takes a little bit of sorry, there's some echo. Can you hear me twice, or you can hear me well?
I hear you. Yeah.
All right. Uh, yeah, perfect now. Yeah, so it does take a little bit of managing skills to have the attendance come in, right? So even here in Australia, we have a private company. I know that I worked for 10 years at Futsals, but the thing that they have been very successful was to promote the game so much that every game the stadium is full. And the same is doing with Felipe and Magnus in Brazil. So he's doing a good job there. And Magnus, every game is full, and they're managing to create superstars. So you think that that's something that Japanese futsal is lacking of?
I think that Magnus is probably a role model for the whole world. I mean, they're the work they do in social media, the quality of the videos, the reality show with Fridge. Remember that was amazing.
That
The
was
work they've
amazing.
done has been incredible. Their presentation, the arena they play in, the way they play up their players as stars. So Magnus, I think, is a real role model, and I think that all teams can learn something from them.
And it's interesting that you say that some players are not professionals in Japan. Even in Magnus, one thing that they do is to give jobs for the parents to work, uh, jobs to the girlfriends, so the players stay at the club. Do, do many players in Japan have jobs related to futsal or not?
Sometimes there are players who work at futsal rental facilities, like futsal rental pitches,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Um, many times, I think teams arrange for jobs, so they find employers in the community who are sort of sympathetic towards futsal, so they allow the player to have extra time for training. So you can come late to work today, or you can leave early tomorrow, or whatever. They're
Yeah.
flexible. So they're even though the player is an amateur and not making any money from the team, he's been able to get a job that is flexible and allows him to play futsal and train. When he has to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's similar to Australia how it works. Some people that want to be involved with futsal, they try to find a job related to futsal. Steve, now going to Asia, In Asia, obviously, only Iran and Japan have won the AFC. But in the last World Cup, all 5 nations qualified to the round of 16s. How do you see futsal currently in Asia?
It's hot. I mean, there's no doubt about that. The region is very hot, and we really haven't seen the best of it because there are some countries that are kind of bubbling under the surface right now. Saudi Arabia is ready to break. Indonesia is ready to break. And Iraq is they kind of run hot and cold. When things settle down in Lebanon, they're going to be back again. So Southeast Asia, West Asia, South Asia. We're still waiting. This tournament currently in India will hopefully lead to more organized futsal being played there, because these populations are huge. When you add up the population of India, Nepal, Pakistan, these places are massive. If they start playing the game, it's going to be incredible. And there's also a country like Afghanistan, where there are many. There's a big refugee community in Iran. So essentially, you have Afghanistan players who were born and raised in Iran. They play like
Even in
Iranians.
UAE, there were lots of Afghans in UAE as well.
There you go. So we've seen Asia rise quite triumphantly in this last World Cup, but it's only the beginning. And it hasn't been happening for a long time. It wasn't until about, I think, the 2008 World Cup that Iran made it to the second stage, I think. So it's only been in the last 13 years that Asia has been has had a presence at the World Cup. Before that, we were always eliminated in the first round. But I think probably, I'm just guessing now. I'm just speculating, but I would imagine for the next World Cup, I don't know, maybe they will increase the number of teams to 32, because it seems to me that 24 is just not enough.
They would have to increase, wouldn't they?
Well, when you think about, first of all, Europe, I mean, they only have seven spots as 24. That's ridiculous. There should be at least 10, 11, maybe 12 teams from Europe. Okay, Asia has 5 spots.
We had
Asia
a discussion about that on the World Cup podcast when we're covering the World Cup, and the thing is, these top 4 third positions that go through to the round of 16s, it's good and bad at the same time, aren't they? Because they keep the teams motivated to keep on going, but at the same time, it just feels that it's too easy to make the round of 16 sometimes.
Ooh, too easy? Don't know if. It seems to me, though, that there were teams that should have been there. Like, for example, Croatia, kind of had a heartbreaking playoff there. They outplayed Czech Republic, and Czech Republic was quite good. So both teams deserved a place. Asia was settled in a very strange way. There was not an actual tournament. They just selected the teams. But for example, Vietnam, who did very well, were actually only second place in their group in the qualification stage. Indonesia was first, but they were not chosen for the big show because of the
ranking of the AFC.
Yeah, the AFC criteria, which were kind of random.
Well, anyway, do you remember what the criteria was quickly?
Yeah, the criteria was it was the top 5 teams from the 2018 tournament, plus top 5 over the last 3 tournaments. So you had two lists of 5 teams each. Okay, so the top 5 from 2018 and the top 5 from 2018, 2016, 2014. And in that top 5, you had Iran, Japan, and Uzbekistan. Okay, and so those 3 teams were present in both lists, but you had 4 other teams that were not in both lists. So those are the teams that had to play off.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a randomly decided on, and not very fair. But it's really not worth discussing, because I don't think it will happen.
If they don't increase to 32 nations, the next AFC qualifiers for the World Cup will be an interesting one, huh?
Yeah, of course, because as I said, there are some countries that are just coming up. They're just bubbling under the surface there, and they're gonna be tough. They are gonna be tough. There's no doubt about it.
What about going for the title of the AFC? Obviously, it's always between Iran and Japan, and there was, I think, Iran won 12 times, Japan won 3.
Yeah.
Can you see anyone matching them at the moment?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Certainly, Uzbekistan could win it. Thailand could win it. Sure. Yeah. Any of those 4 teams, I think, would be contenders. Yeah. And Uzbekistan almost did in 2018. They came very close.
Yeah.
They came very close. 2016. That was they were at home. It was Tashkent, and yeah, that was actually the game they should have won. But they will. They will. I'm sure they will.
And how do you see Japan's performance in the last World Cup under Bruno Garcia?
Pretty much as I expected. No surprises. Yeah, no surprises. They played about what I expected. I think, if we played Paraguay 5 times, I think we could win 3, maybe. I don't know. The teams are very evenly matched. I think Paraguay is a very good team. I don't think we're going to beat
Very
Spain.
similar to Japan,
I don't think we're going to beat Brazil. I think Japan pretty much played as expected. My only disappointment was that, as I've written about many times, there's a very good player here, Vinicius, who is the all-time high scorer in the F League. He's played almost 300 games, and he's scored over 300 goals. I mean, think about that. He's played slightly under 300 games and has scored over 300 goals. So he scores a goal per game. Yeah. And that's astonishing. How can you play 300 games and scoring like every time, and yet not be chosen for your national team? You tell me. Yeah.
No, you tell me.
Yeah. Well, that's a question that will never be answered, but oh well.
Do you consider yourself now being more American or more Japanese?
I don't. Yeah, I don't know. It would be hard to consider myself Japanese. Let's put it that way. I live here. I think I've blended in somewhat well, but I mean, I don't think anybody would ever mistake me for being Japanese. So,
do you follow futsal in the US much? Do you know much about it?
It's really hard because it's not. There's no national league to follow. They're all regional leagues, and so it's alphabet soup. There are all these different leagues. Prior to the World Cup, I coordinated an article written about the USA. I didn't write it. It was our friend Valerio Scalabrelli and Mark Wysocki, an American. They collaborated to write it, and it was very educational for me because I was able to get a lot of information I didn't know. But the problem with the States is that there are all these little leagues all over the place, but no national league. So even if I wanted to follow it, which one do I follow? There's no one major league. Even the national tournament, the team that has been winning it is this team in Utah that tends to use players that don't normally play futsal. They're Brazilians who play arena soccer. So I'm waiting for America to make that breakthrough to a national league. That's really when the party starts. Until a country has a national league, it's just it's all just it's very small.
There has been some talks of them starting a national league now in 2022. Have you heard anything about it?
Well, there were of course there was the talk about the PFL, Professional Futsal League. They had
for a long time,
grandiose ideas and about making a big commercial league, and certainly that's something we can dream about. But unfortunately, I don't think there was the foundation there. I think that a national league has to start as something that's maybe not that glamorous. It's not that glamorous, but you do have to be national. You have to have teams throughout the nation. You have to play regularly. You have to have a season, and it has to be continuous. So I'm waiting for the USA to develop that, and then I'll start following a little more closely.
Because I'm not sure if that's the case in the US. We had Rob Varela in the Futsal Australia podcast last week, and he's the Australian national coach. He was saying that For Australia to have a national league, we have to follow the AFC requirements.
Mhm.
And for a big country like Australia, you have to have home and away games. You can't have games back to back on days back to back. So, for example, you can't have a game on Saturday, then have one on Sunday, and that will make things very expensive. Uh, have you thought of a perfect national league style for the US and for Australia?
Yeah, actually, I watched the your show with Rob. He's an old friend, and
Hmm.
one correction I would make is that what Rob was talking about was if Australia wants to enter the AFC Club Championship, Australia needs to have these
Correct. Yes. Yes.
those
Yes.
requirements.
I didn't
You can
mention that.
have you can
Correct.
have a national league any way you want to. What he's talking about is in order to have a national league that is
That.
eligible for the
Uh-huh.
AFC Club Championship, then you have to have the home and away and all those
So let's
club.
consider that you want to have the top team going to AFC. That's the whole one of the whole points of having a national league.
I would imagine, yeah. So yeah, so I would agree with Rob that that is the target to aim for. And well, I mean, so you're asking, so what would be the format? And I mean, if you look at other countries, they've had to make Herculean efforts. Like for example, Russia. Okay, Russia is huge. It's
Hmm.
absolutely massive, and yet they still are able to have home and away. It's they've just decided to take the time to spend the money to make the efforts to make it happen. And it does. But if you look at a map of Russian futsal clubs, it's absolutely mind boggling. It's so big, it's huge. And you just have to use
Yeah.
modern transportation methods and communication.
It's a
And
lot of research there because I think it was who was the Brazilian player? I think it was Pula that was mentioning that they spend a lot of time, more sometimes more time traveling than actually training there in Russia.
well, I mean, look at Brazil. I mean, how long do these guys ride on the buses in Brazil? I mean,
Yeah,
don't you
very
run on
true.
buses like for 12 hours in Brazil?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Brazil has probably some of the most crazy travel schedules that in the world, right?
Yeah,
Even for
just in São
state,
Paulo
state,
State, when I was
yeah,
under 20s, I think the furthest game was 11 hours away by bus in the same
exactly,
state.
exactly. And then those are
Yeah.
on bad roads. So it's just you have to make the decision, and then you actually have to go through the process, which is sometimes hard, but I think once you do it, you can kind of streamline the process and you can perfect it. And some teams will stay and some teams will quit, but you end up with an evolved league, and you just have to have the leadership, and you have to have the clubs that will get on board.
Hmm. All right. So my last question for you before we start wrapping up. What needs to be improved in futsal in general? You can apply that to Japan. You can apply it to other countries. But what in your eyes needs to be improved?
Hmm.
It's a big
Oh,
question.
that's an open question. What needs to be improved? I would say that access to the games, like when there's big tournaments, like for example, when the World Cup, for example, FIFA should make sure that everybody everywhere can see this thing.
Hmm.
This idea of people having to use VPN and having to buy expensive subscriptions or this and that. It's ridiculous. First of all, FIFA, you've developed a sport beautifully. It's a spectacle now, and everybody should see it. And I think it's a real scandal that it's not available to everybody who wants to see it, because we were seeing on social media people in different countries saying, how do I watch it? How do I watch the World Cup? That's a
Hmm.
scandal. It should be FIFA.com. Just click and you will see the World Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you agree?
I agree. I think you're totally right. It's like and then people keep on asking us as well because they know that we're gonna find the link. They keep on asking us, where do I find? And if it's hard for us that's involved in futsal to find these links, imagine for someone that is just a futsal fan.
Right. And I mean, you want to, to return to what I was talking about, in the 80s and 90s, we had no materials to work with. We had no videos, we had no textbooks, we had nothing, you know. But if you just show people the game, if you just stream World Cup games and you allow people to watch it and they'll learn from it. And they can learn, you know, way more from like one futsal game than they can from hours and hours and hours of instruction from, you know, a coach, because it
Mhm.
just, you know, seeing is believing.
It makes me wonder if, for example, the Spanish league, if they have all the games live streamed on their YouTube channel, how much money they would make. All right, so if they want to people to watch on TV in Spain, it's not allowed to watch on TV, but in all the other countries, you would be able to watch on their YouTube channel. Yeah, it just makes me wonder how much money they would make, how much more money they would make.
Yeah, you know, I wonder. It's still really hard to monetize the sport. You know, it's really hard to monetize it. I think, you know, Spain is doing a great job now because there are multiple platforms where you can watch games and you don't have to pay for it.
Hmm.
Um, Hopefully one day people will be willing to pay, you know, for subscriptions, but man, it's just difficult. There's never been a lot of money in futsal, and there continues to be very little money in futsal. There's a lot of heart, there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of fun, but there's never any money.
Oh, I actually see that there is a lot of potential and there is a lot of opportunity to make money. That's in many ways. And I know you said that it's hard to monetize, but I see as so many potential, so much potential. Steve, anything else you'd like to add, or can we go to our last part of the interview of the podcast?
Oh, I just, you know, I have to once again give props, give credit to all of my friends and associates out there. You know, the uniforms you see behind me, for example, the LS there is Tyson Nam. You know, Antonio, the goalkeeping coach there, has been an invaluable resource for me. You know, he's like for me a teacher, and you know
Hmm.
he gave me that uniform when he came to Japan. We were both at the Japan Argentina game, or you know, there's the Brazilian jersey behind me that was given to me by a Brazilian player when I went to Australia in 1996. You know, they built a futsal pitch in Canberra because they tried to actually get futsal into the Sydney Olympics in 2000, and Canberra was going to host the futsal event,
Hmm.
and they held a four country tournament there, and Japan was invited along with Brazil and Canada, and you know I traded I think a Japanese jersey for a Brazilian jersey right there. So that's actually the actual jersey you know they wore at that tournament. It was a
Nice.
young Brazilian team though. This was after they won the World Cup in Spain. So it was there was a pretty well known fixer at the time named Andre. I don't know if you remember him. He's kind of a short guy.
I have heard of
Um,
him. Yes.
Yeah, and you know, or there's the Vietnam jersey right behind me there. You know, my friend Tan in Vietnam. You know, he has been invaluable for you know just telling me about Vietnamese futsal. I mean, everything I need to know. And then you know, Futsal Planet published a story by him about Vietnamese futsal. So you know these uniforms, I put them up there because you know there's a story behind each one. The El Poso one right over here, that was
Yeah.
from my trip to Spain. You know, I went in 2001, 2003 to see the LNFS final playoffs. You
Well.
know, I met guys there, and I met Javier Lozano, you know, the president of the league,
Yeah.
and you know, great memories. And the thing is, you know, there's so many people I've met who are passionate about the game, you know, much more than I am, and they've accepted me, you know, into their circle. So you know, it grows and it grows and it grows and grows, and you know, I've enjoyed the generosity of people for all these years, and hopefully, I can provide the same sort of generosity that I've received.
Now, look, yeah, your passion is contagious. So that's why we say that I believe I'm a big believer that people bring people similar to you, attract people that are similar to you, and you have attracted a beautiful community. That goes to show that you're so passionate about it, and you get people that are passionate about futsal to you as well. Steve, before we go to the last bit, what's next for you? What any goals that you can you just want to keep on going with this journey, or any special projects coming up?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I try to come up with ideas to, write about, and my most recent project, which will soon be published at Futsal Planet, is a story about a Japanese referee. This is the first time I've written an article about a referee, and he was at this World Cup, and he was at the last one, and this last World Cup was his final World Cup as a FIFA referee. That's a decision made by the JFA. They decide, not the referee. But I sat down and talked to him by Zoom for a couple hours, wrote the article, and we're in the process of completing it right now, and hopefully it'll come out in the next week or so. But it's a pretty good, I think, historical piece about one man's evolution as a referee, which I don't know about you, but I really haven't had a chance to ever talk to a referee like that before. So it was very eye-opening for me to get that view from the lens of an official. And I hope that the article does give people more insights into the mentality that the referees bring with them to the game.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing that one. The referees, they're always copying so much attitude, and they're getting a hard time, and they don't get the credit they deserve. And actually, the next podcast is with Ryan Shepherd, the Australian referee that went to the World Cup.
That's right. That's right.
I look forward to talking to him very much. Steve, we always play a little game before you go. It's called the rapid fire questions. You have 40 seconds to answer as many questions as you can. Just so you know, top goal is the top of the table is 11 points, and it's being shared between 5 people, and no one can break the 11-point mark. So Vinicius Leite, Jordan Guerrero.
So wait. So there are 40 seconds, and I have to answer how many questions?
As many as you can. If you get 12, you're gonna be the top of the table. So 11 right now is between 5 people.
Okay, so but the thing. All right. Well, I'm not very competitive, so anyway, I'll give it my best shot.
All right. So when you're ready, there is no right and wrong answers. You answer whatever you feel comfortable with, and there is nothing really bad about the question. So just give that a go. Okay.
Okay.
Are you ready to go?
Ready to go.
All right, let's start in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Greatest futsal player of all time.
Ricardinho.
Best futsal player to ever play in the F League.
Ricardinho.
Name one person that has helped futsal grow in Japan.
Miguel Rodrigo.
Your favorite Japanese dish.
Sushi.
Which country will win the next AFC?
Japan.
Favorite hobby.
Futsal.
If you could pick one player for the national team of Japan, who would you pick?
Vinicius.
What's your favorite social media platform?
Facebook.
Name one Japanese futsal shoes brand.
Asics.
All right, that's time. Look, 9 aces is a pretty good effort. It's really good. It started going very fast, and then you got stuck in that last one there. Steve, amazing. Thank you for coming on the show. Congratulations on everything you'll be achieving. Keep on going, and look forward to have you one more time on the show in the future.
Well, Andrea, I have to give props to you, because it's been an honor to be invited to your podcast. I think you've created, single-handedly your own sort of what's the word? Your own kind of, almost like a brand, the Andre Caro brand. And I think we look to you now as a leader in the community for bringing people together, for giving us a platform, for providing valuable content, not only as a follower of the game, but as a futsal expert, and actually showing us your skills. So you've really checked a lot of the boxes that other people can't. So I think that you've single-handedly achieved quite a position, and you've only been doing this for what, a couple of years now, right?
The podcast being a few months. I've been on social media for the past 10 years, but yeah, it's a bit of everything. But appreciate all the kind words. But really, you're the one here that deserves all the credit today. All credit to you. Congratulations. I look forward to have you again.
Yeah, well, I look forward to talking to you again.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve. Thanks everyone for listening to the podcast. As I mentioned before, the next one is with Ryan Shepherd. Steve, you are an amazing guy. We need more people like you in futsal. Thank you.
Well, I thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening. See you next time.